You know, if you've ever been confused about how to ask a guy out, we're going to answer that for you here today. Yes, this is Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. I'm going to show you some things that you might never have thought of when it comes to making him say yes to you when you ask him out. But first, before we get the rockin' and rolling, I want to make sure you do the big three. What do you got to do? Make sure you subscribe to the video, turn on your notifications, because that's the way that you'll know that the next one comes out. I do these weekly. And of course, leave me your comments and questions below. I want to really know what you want me to make the next video on. Sure, we live in some really interesting times where men and women are confused about how romance works. In poll after poll, I find the same thing. Both men and women are really confused about what the rules are for asking someone out. Now, in most of the recent surveys and studies, the majority of women feel that asking a guy out is a little bit too forward. There's this implied feeling of, well, I must be a slut if I show my interest in a guy. And we know that isn't true, but we do believe it's true in a weird, primitive part of our brains. We just don't feel like it's right. So if you're at all like the women in most age groups, that means pretty much all age groups, you want to know how to ask a guy out and do it in the safest way possible if you do, right? One of the first questions I hear about asking a guy out, though, is why should I ask him out? Why should I ask a guy out? Well, after all, most women don't really want to ask guys out on a date, right? I mean, let's be real about this. No matter how much popular culture tells you it's okay, you don't want to. And there's lots of reasons why women don't want to ask men out. Well, first of all, it's flattering when a guy asks you out, right? Doesn't that feel so much better? It's a man's job to initiate. I'm sure you probably feel that way. You want to know he's got the balls to do it. Otherwise, how are you going to know if he'll be able to keep you safe later on? You got to know he's got courage. And as a woman, you want to be chased. You want to feel desired. How would you even know if he really found you attractive if you ask him out, right? He could just be going along just to be nice. And then you've got magazines, movies, and websites that tell you you need to ask guys out if you want to be equals and you want to promote feminism. Sorry, but I'm not going there today. I was lucky. I had a dad that understood that guys need to have, well, sometimes we need to have our dads show them how to get our courage up. My dad would put a $5 bill up on the fridge. That was a lot of money back when I was a kid. He put it up on the refrigerator and he said, it was mine. I could take that $5 if I would just go talk to Julie, the girl that I liked. He knew that money was a great motivator for me. Well, eventually I did talk to Julie. I called her up on the phone. I invited her over for dinner, and she came over with her mom, and it was actually a really cute little dinner. Now, I'd like to say that, you know, I was 8 years old at the time. I'd like to say that it was a lifelong romance and I married her, but that's not how it turned out. But hey, that's a great first experience for an 8-year-old boy. But you know what? You got to know the reasons why you want to ask him out. Let's cover a few of those reasons now. The first reason you might want to ask a guy out is he's chicken. Yeah, there are a ton of guys out there that are just plain scared to death of asking a woman out. If you've ever tried to ask a guy out, you probably can sympathize. It's not easy. There's a whole generation of guys out there that have never really had to prove their manly status quite this way, or they learned some weak and wimpy ways of asking women out. They only have to swipe on a phone or send an email. And then there's the older guys, 40s, 50s and up, and these guys grew up without dads in a lot of cases to show them how to do it. Look, I didn't feel comfortable approaching women until I was in my late 30s, and I had a dad that prompted and pushed me along when I was a kid, so you can see how difficult it must be for most guys out there. This is why taking a chance to ask him out is going to work out better for you in the long run for certain guys. You'll be casting a wider net, and you'll probably get at least twice the dates that the other good girls get who are too scared to take a chance. Another reason why you need to know how to ask him out is he's intimidated. Of course, if there's one thing that will shut down the bravest of souls, it's a guy thinking that, well, he's out of his league with a woman. I've seen 6'7" football players get tongue-tied and weak in the knees when they're confronted with a beautiful woman. And he might never get around to asking you out simply because he's already decided he's not worthy of you. Yeah, it sounds crazy, and it's also a very common experience for a man. There was a study that showed if a person feels that they aren't hot enough for you, like they're 1 point lower on the 1 to 10 scale, they simply won't even try to ask you out on a date. They're just too intimidated. Now, ironically, this is also because when we get rejected by someone we feel is higher status than us or more attractive, it hurts more. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about how to ask a guy out. Tip number 1 is figure out if it's right. You got to know right up front why you're doing it. To do this, you've got to check in with your instincts. Now, I coach women all the time in how to, the proper use of the gut check. Checking your gut to make sure that you feel like it's something you should do. It's something that anyone can do, but so few people actually do it. You need to check in with your instincts before you do anything. Some guys might attract you, but you realize he's not a good fit. I mean, some of the reasons he might not be good for you are he's immature, he might be a player, he could be insecure, he might be weak and indecisive. And the only way you figure these things out is to look at him with clear eyes before you take any action. In a lot of situations, you might find that you don't really want to ask him out, and hey, you dodged a bullet there. But in any situation, you get the advantage of checking him out first. So check with your gut and make sure it feels right to you. How to ask a guy out. Tip number 2, get your boots on. You do have to eventually recognize there are 3 possible reasons that the guy you're interested in isn't doing anything about it. He isn't asking you out. Reason number 1 is he doesn't know you're interested and he thinks you might say no. Reason number 2 is he's interested in you, but he lacks the courage to do anything about it. And of course, reason number 3, he's not interested. Now, at some point, you just have to say, heck with it, just go for it. And that's what I mean when I say you got to get your boots on. You got to just get to work. The worst situation is that he's not interested, and you're no worse off than you were before. If you don't take action, nothing's gonna happen. Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player, once said, "I miss every shot I don't take." You can kind of take them for face value on that. There's some great wisdom there. You just got to find the guts within you to simply take a shot and ask him out. Sure, he might say no, but he might also say yes. How to ask a guy out. Tip number 3 is to do it the easy way. If you can't get over your fear of him saying no or rejecting you or not being interested, the best way to handle it is just get him to go out with you with a group, like a group of your friends, or if you happen to work with them, you could get him out with a group of your coworkers. Just get him out to happy hour, some group activity. You can go to a group lunch at a local restaurant or a local bar after work. There's tons of possibilities here if you don't know how to ask a guy out. I used to go out with my friends after work, and I used to meet other people from other departments just because I went out with that whole group of people. And this always opens up the opportunity to do something more one-on-one later on. Just use this opportunity to flirt, let them see that there's some interest from you, and that kind of sets the whole stage for what comes next. How to ask a guy out. Tip number 4 is get some Java. Just, the best standby, the low-risk, cool and easy way to hang out with a guy is just to ask him to go get coffee with you. All you got to do is tell him, hey, you know what, I was just heading out. I thought it might be nice for us to get to know each other a little better. It takes 10 minutes to go get coffee, and if that's all you do, that's it, which means there's actually a low time investment. If things look good, sit down and keep talking. How to ask a guy out. Tip number 5 is flip the tables. One of the best ways, it's actually really fun, to avoid risking your self-esteem when you want to know how to ask a guy out is just to use a little bit of humor in it. You can ask him out in a kind of a funny pickup artist kind of way. It's a way of flipping the tables, the gender roles that we're used to, right? We're always used to guys being the player. Hey, baby, you look good, that kind of thing. Well, use your best line on him with a cheesy kind of manner about it. For example, do this. Try this one on him. Do you believe in love at first sight? Or should I walk past you again? Or here's a great one. I love this one. If you were a phaser on Star Trek, you'd be set to stun. You get the idea, right? You even add in a little Austin Powers swagger to it. 'Twill make you horny, baby. Guys will find this cute and endearing that you flip the roles, you felt comfortable enough to play the pickup artist on them, and you're playing with it, you're having fun. How to ask a guy out. Tip number 6 is send him a note. This is where I'm going to endorse the different ways that different generations feel about using their phone to communicate. I mean, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you have no problem using your phone to connect with people. You've been doing it since you're 8 years old anyways. If you're in your 40s or your 50s, well, you might think there's something a little bit weak or wimpy about doing it in text or on the phone, but you'll get over it and you'll try it anyways. And you know what? Even if you're in your 60s or 70s, you might think this is weird, but you know what? My aunt is in her 70s and she still texts me, so I know you can get the hang of this. Really, just use your phone. It's like passing notes in class. Send them a quick email with an idea for an activity you'd like to share with them. This avoids the whole awkward asking them out part directly. You can just spend a few minutes or days composing just the right message to send to him. Or just send him a quick text with that same idea for something you two could do together if you've got his phone number. And believe me, it's not hard to get a guy's phone number. Guys give it out all the time. We're sluts with our phones. All right, how to ask a guy out. Tip number 7, send a messenger over. This one's also kind of like being back in middle school, but it works. Send a friend of yours over to talk to him. See if there's any interest. You avoid any risk of rejection, and your friend gets to play the matchmaker. They love that stuff. It's always easier to send a third party over who can sell you a little bit to him too. This works for somebody you've known for a while, or even a guy you just got your eye on at a party. How to ask a guy out, tip number 8 is flirt without being direct. Look, the best way to ask a guy out on a date doesn't even involve asking him out. It's more about pushing so many buttons in him that he has to do something about it if he's into you. Just about the best way to get a guy to act on his desires is to make it perfectly clear that they are welcome, that you're welcoming him, you're actually interested in him. In this day and age of sexual fear and politics that kind of weirds us all out, weirds me out, I don't know about you, a guy just wants to know that he won't be sent to jail for acting on his desires. This is the ultimate test of a guy's interest, okay? If you flirt hard with him and he doesn't act on it, you'll know where you stand. If you flirt and he's responsive to you, you're going to get a really good idea that he'd say yes to you, possibly if you asked him out. So here's a good saying from Sun Tzu. He's the ancient military philosopher. He said this. He said, "Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win." I'm not sure why I put a British accent on a Chinese philosopher, but you get the point. The people who are victorious at things set themselves up to be victorious first. They don't just jump into a situation they don't know about. In love and romance, you should be able to get a pretty clear idea about how a man's going to respond to you if you ask him out before you ever have to do it, before you ever even have to think about risking. How to ask a guy out, tip number 9, be cool and roll the bones. One of my favorite bands has a song called Roll the Bones. It's a great song about taking risks, and the song is really about how often we're looking for all kinds of reasons and evidence to do something, but the funny thing is that we're collecting all that research just to avoid doing anything. We're just stalling. We're trying to be sure about stuff that you simply cannot be sure about. When it comes to another person's interest in you, you can't be sure he's going to dig you. You can't be sure, absolutely positive he's going to say yes, but I'd say there's a better than 50% chance he does like you if you're willing to take that chance. Most guys are pretty clueless about women these days. That's why I spent over 16 years teaching guys how to man up and demonstrate that masculine confidence. From my own experience, I can pretty much guarantee that no man would be offended or scream harassment if you were to ask him out. It's just not going to happen. And if you wait around, well, you could miss out on the guy who's the one for you. So the risk isn't really about him as much as you feeling rejected, right? That's what you're really afraid of. Or even feeling rejected if you ask him out and he doesn't seem all that interested. And that's a perfectly valid concern, but if you don't feel you could handle a no from him, that it would drive you into this deep, dark depression, just don't do it. Get to work on your feelings of worthiness so that you can handle it, because believe it or not, most men are running around deathly afraid of a woman saying no to him, which is why he doesn't do what you're considering doing, which is asking you out. Now, there is a way to avoid any risk when it comes to showing your interest in a guy, and that's knowing what he's saying with his body language and his signals before you do anything. Every guy is actually sending you messages that you're probably missing. The honest to gosh reality is that a woman needs to know how to read a man's signals. Guys are throwing their signals off all day long, and they tell you exactly what he's thinking and feeling, if you know what to look for. So I pulled together a nice list of all these into a short little course. You can go check it out. Go look at the article down at the link you see below me here. That's datingadviceguru.com/read his signals. That's read his signals, all one word. And of course, don't forget the big 3. Make sure you subscribe to this video. Just click that little subscribe button down there. Click the little notification button next to it so you get a notification when the new ones come out. That's huge. And number 3, leave me your questions and comments below in the comments section. I do check them out, and I will use that when it comes to doing my next video. Hey, this is Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. If you also want the rest of this article, make sure you go to the site. I'll be talking again soon. As always, live and love with passion.